everyone and welcome to another video, and in this one you're going to be getting a personal walkthrough of the Blender 4.4 with Invensia. I've been doing low poly modeling for quite a few years now, so I want to share a lot of the tips and tricks and techniques and what I do and just guide you through it. So you can start up Blender 4.4 as well if you have got that one, or any more recent version if that's available. And you can follow along if you want. You can pause this video whenever you want, and maybe there are a few tips and tricks in here that you've missed. If you're brand new, you can still follow along with this one. If you've been doing Blender modeling for a long time, maybe there are still a few tips and tricks here that you'll find useful. So I think we're just gonna get started. And if you're wondering what this palette texture is, I've probably covered this in a lot of my videos, but in one video in particular, I've linked that in the description. That's actually how to set this palette texture up. And if you don't want to do that, you can actually just download this palette texture. It's a blend file with this texture already set up in a material, and it just saves you about 10 times the amount of time that it would compared to having to texture paint an object. So I always use this to do my fast low poly models, and just clean, crisp colors, and it supports emission for glowing surfaces and reflective surfaces and all that stuff. So right, let's get into it. So I've got Blender 4.4 started here, and usually I model in the UV editing tab. When you start Blender, you'll probably end up in this layout or even the modeling tab. But I always just, since I colorize all my object with the UV editing technique, I'm in the UV editing tab. And on the left, you'll have this texture if you've loaded my blend file up. So we'll get into this in a minute now. I just want to go through a lot of the different stuff that I use. So in your viewport, usually you start with this default cube. The only difference that I've done with this cube is that I've actually put my material. So in the lower right corner here, you can see that I've got my Invensia palette texture material. So usually by default, you'll have something else. If I just delete that one, usually you'll probably just have a plain cube with maybe no material or something default here. If you've loaded my palette texture, you want to make sure, actually, do you know what? I'm going to delete that one and create a new cube so you can see. So this is a brand new cube. It's got no material at all. So in the drop down here, so I'm in material, and here I'm just going to select my Invensia palette texture. Now you can see that it's actually got a whole bunch of different colors on it here. And that's because when you UV unwrap something, that's when you take a 3D object and you unfold it. So you can actually place it on a 2D texture space. And on the left, you can see that it's like this cross thing here. Each quad here represents one of the faces here. So if I select this one, we can see that it's over here. It even says scroll because it's part of this scroll thing here. This is actually how I use my Invensia palette texture to colorize objects, because if I press A, you can select all the faces of any object that you're editing. And in the UV drop down at the top here, I'm just going to go here and click reset, and that actually brings it, so it just changes the quad on the left here, so all of the ones are filling up the whole texture space. So every single side of this cube now will look the same with the same palette texture. Is using the whole image and putting it on each side of this cube. And here's the magic stuff that it comes to when I colorize with this technique with this palette texture. It's if I scale this down, and instead of dragging it down, I can press 0 on my keyboard, and that scales it down infinitely small. And you can see it looks really stripy and weird now, and that's because I'm like right in between two colors here in the center of the texture. But G is a very useful hotkey. You can use that when you're editing meshes or when you're editing UVs. If you press G, then you can move anything that you've got selected. And since I'm on the left side now in the UV editing tab, I can place this on any color now. So if I wanted to place it back on a gray color, I can do it here. If I zoom in, we can see that all of those quad faces are here, but it's like sized down into an infinitely small point, and I'm going to place that on just a gray surface here. And this is where the magic comes in with the pix palette. Well, can't even say it myself. Invensia palette texture. It's because this is a 128 by 128 pixel image, and if I just select one of the faces on the cube and press G on the left here, I can place that onto a different color. So this is how you can quickly colorize low poly objects, and you'll find that when you're working with objects that using this method will save you a ton of time. You could create separate materials and all that stuff. I've tried those things, and because I get that question a lot too. Why don't you just create different materials, or why don't you use vertex coloring and stuff like that? And they all have pros and cons, but still, this is by far the best and fastest technique that I've found to use to colorize objects. So now I'm just going to go through a lot of this stuff. If you're wondering, you can look at my keystrokes and my mouse clicks here. I've actually enabled this screencast keys add-on here now, which is an extension these days. So you can see what I'm clicking, and I'm just going to scroll, like change Control Z back so we get this default cube. This is usually what my scene will look like when you start up Blender. Let's turn this cube now into a plank. We can start with that. A few of the hotkeys that you want to know is tab is to go between object mode and edit mode. And object mode is when you can click on an object and you can select and maybe move that around in your scene or something, place it somewhere, or you can scale the object, or you can, G to move the object. If you want to cancel out something, you just right click. You might not know that one. So just right click if you want to cancel a movement. That's the same as pressing escape. So you can either right click or do escape. The difference now is when I press tab, you can see that we go into edit mode of this. And now I can start to manipulate this cube into something that we want. One important part here is that you can toggle between vertex, and that's up here on the top left corner. You can see vertex, edge, or face select. You'll be toggling between these a lot. So in vertex mode, you can click on different points of the cube or whatever mesh that you've got. And on the edge select, you can click on different edges and move them or scale them or something. And if you click on this one, face select, then you can click on entire faces. And there's a really convenient shortcut to do this. 1, 2, 3. So 1 will select vertex mode, 2 will select edge mode, and 3 will select face mode. You'll be toggling between these a lot when you edit meshes, so you might want to get used to those in particular. The difference now, if I press A as well, that's a good one to know. That selects everything, and if you want to deselect everything, you double click A. So A selects everything, double click A selects nothing. So, but I want to select everything, so I press A, and now I press S to scale it, and now it uniformly scales this one up and down. But actually, I can lock this scaling now to a particular axis, and you'll see that the y-axis here is green, the z-axis is blue, and the x-axis is red. So when I press scale, if I press Z, then it will only scale on the blue z-axis. If I press X, it'll only scale on the x-axis, and if I press Y, it'll only scale on the y-axis. If I press Shift Z, that's like the opposite of Z, so then it'll scale in Y and X axis. That's pretty useful to be able to know. So you can actually do Shift Z and Shift Y and Shift X to do the opposite. And I want to flatten this one now into like something that's going to turn into a plank. So I'm going to press, when everything's selected in edit mode, press S to scale it, and then Z because I want to flatten this down. And then I want to press S to scale this one down uniformly to something like that. So the difference now is that I've scaled down the geometry inside of this mesh, and that's an important concept to know, because if I tab out of edit mode and go into object mode again here, you can see that on the right here of my viewport I've got there's a lot of different tabs and stuff, but on this one I can see I've got item, tool, view, and edit here. And in item, it's usually important, you want to have this one as much as possible to scale 1, 1, 1. So scale on the X, Y, and Z axis is all 1. If you scale like if I press scale here now, you can see that I'm actually scaling it down. So it becomes smaller, but the scale is also smaller. So when you drag this into a game engine, it will actually not respect the scale at all, because it will think that it's going to be doing it at scale 1. So I'm going to press Ctrl Z. And that's why I do my editing in object or in edit mode here. Now when everything's selected and I move it, even if I scale it up to really big, if I tab out of edit mode into object mode, you can see that the scale of the object itself is still 1. So I'm scaling the geometry within the mesh when I'm in edit mode. And usually I always tend to want to keep my objects at 1, 1, 1 in the scale, and then just make sure you edit here. The reason why as well this is important, it's because you'll start to get really weird behavior, especially if you've scaled it ununiformly. I'm going to Ctrl Z all the way back to the cube. And now if I scale this one and scale it down on my Z axis, you can see now my Z scale is a lot smaller. Now when I do a few things, like if I inset this one, we'll come to this in a minute, you can see that it's not uniformly insetting it. It's actually doing a little bit in the Z direction and a lot in my Y direction here. And that's because I've got a different scale on my parent object, or on the object itself. So you don't really want to ever have a different scale here. You can see the difference now. And let's Ctrl Z out of this one. So we're back to this one, where it's still squashed. We can see the Z scale is still 0.18 here. To get rid of this one, if you've done changes by mistake, for example, you can actually while the object is selected, you can press Ctrl A and then apply the scale. You can see now that the object stays the same size, but it applies the scale, so we're back to 1, 1, 1. And the benefit when you're in this mode, if I select this one and now I press I to inset, you can see that my insetting is uniformly scaling it. And this is usually how you want to be doing when you're operating when you're manipulating a mesh like this, because it starts to go really weird when it's not in the proper scale there. So try to keep that in mind. If you're having some weird behavior, it's probably because you've accidentally scaled your your mesh outside or the object itself. So you just you can always go in there and press Control A when it's selected to apply it. If you don't see this gizmo too, usually sometimes this disappears. I press Shift Space, that's the default hotkey, and you can enable this, whether it should be like a rotate tool. I usually have it on this move tool, so Shift Space, you can get this context menu up, and you can select move here if it doesn't look like it does on my screen. Sometimes this disappears too, and that's because you've pressed space and you're wondering where is the thing, because it should be visible, but it's because it's playing an animation. So you can see at the bottom here, it's a little discreet, but it says Anim Player, and that's because I pressed space and it's actually playing. If I go into the animation tab, you can see that it's playing an animation now. And when it's doing that, it's actually hiding my little gizmo tool here. So that could be why it's done. So when you're in this edit mode and you've got the Shift Space and the G, the move tool here, you can just, either you can press G to move it, like whichever way you want, but it's a little bit difficult to know which way you're dragging it. Because if I move it here, thinking that I'm moving it just in the side way, you can see that I've actually moved it in 3D space. And that's usually not what you want to do when you're editing these. So I'm going to press Ctrl Z. You can always do that multiple times to go back if you need to. So usually what I do when I need to move something is I click on the actual arrow here on this gizmo. So if I click on the green one and pull it, I can see that I can move these down. And I can select any face by just clicking on them because I'm in face select here. So if you're in vertex select, you cannot click on a face. So sometimes that's a little bit confusing, but you can see these little dots, and that's why. So get used to switching between these three. That's like the most important thing that you're going to be doing when you're editing meshes, switching between vertex, edge, and face select. So if I grab this face here now in face select, and I can pull this one out here. So this would have been the same as scaling it. If I press A to select everything, and I press S to scale it, and I press Y to force it on the Y-axis. So whether I move those faces out or if I scale this thing, it's there's always multiple ways to get the same result in Blender. So you'll learn to know when to use certain techniques and when to use others. So if this is going to be our plank now, and I mean, we could be done here. This could be a super simple plank, but I'm going to colorize it now into like a plank color. So I'm going to, on my left now, I'm going to move my mouse cursor over to the left side, and you can see that this is selected because I've selected. If it's not like this, if I deselect everything with double click A, you can see that these are just black instead, these dots here. So I can press A on the left here. That selects all of my unwrapped faces, and then I can press G and I'll move these into like a brown color for this plank. And I can zoom in with a mouse wheel in and out, and hold the shift and middle mouse button to pan. That works in any viewport too. So that's how you can get, like, if you don't see really what you need to. So I'm going to place it on this vertex here. So now we're going to come into some more interesting ways to manipulate the meshes. So we've created a plank here. Usually you don't want to have just straight like edges even in a low poly game like this, because you want to have a little bit of characters to your models probably. One tool that I often use is Control R, and that's to introduce something called a loop cut. You can see that when I press Control R and I hover my mouse over the object, it creates this little yellow line around it. And that's because it's creating a loop cut all the way around my plank here. If you use the mouse wheel and scroll up, you can select how many of these cuts that you want, or if you scroll it down, you can go down. You can also press a number like 5 or 4, or okay, I pressed 54 now, so that's a lot. So I'm going to press Escape, Control R again. So I'm going to press 4, maybe 4 loop cuts. Okay, and then when I click the left mouse button now, you can see that it's sort of confirmed that I want to create these 4 loop cuts. But now I still got an option to where I want to place them, so I can slide them in any of these left and right directions here. And if I actually want it to be default, where like to just space them out evenly, I can remember what we did before, either press an escape or right click. So I'm going to right click now, and that'll snap them back, but it's still going to apply them now. So now I've added some more geometry to a mesh, and that's important because if you try to bend this plank or do something, if you don't have these extra lines in your geometry, it's not going to work, because you can only change a polygon or a 3D mesh based on where there is geometry. So if I wanted to make a little bit more character out of this plank, you can see that I'm in edge select now. So it's number 2 on the keyboard. I can click on these edges now. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to hit. If you try to click on a vertex here, it's actually going to just try to find the nearest edge there. And I'll click on this one on the end here, and I'm going to move this one out on this axis. So now you can start to shape the plank a little bit into something more interesting. Whenever possible, I try to move it along these different axes instead of trying, because if I try to press G again, then I start to bend this plank. And sometimes that's what you want to do, but here actually is a good opportunity to say that if I blend this one up here because I want a plank that's bending, there's actually a problem with the geometry now, because it looks here like there is a bend, but there's actually a problem with the, because this is a quad, and usually you always want to keep quads in your meshes as much as possible. But the problem is when you start to bend the quad, especially something like this even, you can see that it's got like some weird stuff. It's got like a line here, even though we haven't created a line here. It's because when it's trying to render this one now, it's trying to get these into a solid piece of geometry, but it's not able to, because it's got 4 corners, but it's trying to warp it into something that needed like some more geometry. So you don't want to get into a situation where you create objects like this. If you desperately want your plank to look like this, there are different ways that you can do to fix that. And I'll show you one straight away how you can do it. If you wanted a plank that looked like this, and we need to fix this problem here, if I press 1 to go into vertex select, I can click on these 2 vertices here. So first I click on this one, and then I hold the shift key and I click on this one. That'll select both of these. And now I can create a little cut between here by pressing J. So it nearly fixed it, but you can see that it's actually showing still I've got some weird geometry here, and it's because the backside is containing this problem too. So this backside is still only like, it's 4 vertices and it's trying to create a face here, but even a smart program like Blender doesn't really know how you want it to be cut. So I would also have to click on this vertex and this one and press J, and that will create, like, it'll force the program to realize that you want a line here. So this will actually fix that problem. Now you'll have a plank that looks super weird because we've just like bent it into something that it shouldn't be, but at least we fixed that problem that you'll occurred. What we did though in this process is that we introduced triangles instead of quads. And like I said before, usually you want to try to model everything with quads, especially if you're doing characters and faces and heads, or like pretty much anything, or car bodies, or I don't know, you name it. You probably want quads most of the time. But I'm going to be telling you as well that it's okay to break that rule, especially when you're doing low poly objects, and especially if they don't need to be animated. So we're going to get to this point where we're going to be bending this plank a little bit, but I'm going to Control Z back out of this. So we're back to this plank where it was like this, because usually I want to just try to keep it so that it's not, I'm not gonna start to twist it at this point. I just want to make it a little bit more interesting character-wise. So here we've still got quads everywhere. We've got a big thick plank now, and we've got a little bit, but we still want to make this one a little bit more interesting. What can we do to do that? Well, first of all, you can scale different things differently. So if I click on this line here, and again I'm in edge select, I press S now to scale. I can make it a little bit thinner here. I press S to scale this one, and maybe I want this one to be a bit thicker. And now I'm actually starting to get, theoretically, we're getting into the same problem like that we did before, because it's not uniformly, like it doesn't really know exactly how to do it, because this one's a bit thicker than this one here. But usually when it's only slight differences like this, is perfectly fine, because you'll never have super flat surfaces at all times. So usually it's okay to do that. All right, we still want a little bit more interesting, so I'm going to create like a split of this plank now to make it a little bit more cartoony. And to do that, I'm going to press Control R, and instead of using it on this edge now, I'm going to press on this edge at the end here, and that creates a loop cut all the way along it. So I'm going to press here. I only want one loop cut this time, and I get to move it, but I can right click if I want to snap it like back to the center. But I'm going to put it a little bit to the side here. And now I can extrude these, extrusion is something I do a lot, all the time. Extruding is taking a face like this, and then the hotkey is to press E. And when you E to extrude, then it just extrudes that one and creates something like that. We don't want a plank that looks like this though, so I'm going to press Control Z. Usually what I want to do is I want to find an interesting way to extrude it. So I'm going to press E to extrude this one, and it always tries to extrude it in the direction that the normal of the face is facing. But I can still move it to whatever I want, and then here I can do this one. So now I extruded these with E, both of them, to create a split on the plank. There's actually a faster way to do this that I do all the time. So I'm going to press Control Z, and I'm going to click on this face, and then I'm going to hold the Shift key. That's what you can always do to increase your selection. So I'm going to Shift click on this one. If I click E to extrude now, it's going to uniformly extrude those at the same time. It's just going to take that geometry and extrude it. And usually sometimes you want this, but I often want there's a reason I wanted that split there. So I'm going to press Control Z, and instead of pressing E, I'm going to press Alt E. Now we get a little bit more things to do. We can do extrude individual faces. And the difference here, you'll see now, it looks like it did the same, but it's actually extruded these separate now. So if I click on this one and move it to the side, you can see that that split is here. And it's probably more apparent if we do like these two, for example, where it's actually a little bit different shape. Alt-E, it's extrude along, extrude individual faces. You can see if I extrude it, it's got those. And this becomes particularly handy when you want to do something with many extrusions at the same time. But now we've extruded this one, and I'm going to move this one into place there. So that's our plank. It's already got a little bit more character now. Another tool we can use is we can press R to rotate something. So if I press R, and now I'll just, by default, it rotates it in whatever direction you're viewing in the viewport. So if I'm viewing it from this side, it's actually going to rotate around my view axis. If I go all the way down here and press R to rotate, you can see that it's rotating it around my viewport still. So rotate, if I look from the top and rotate, it'll rotate that one. And same that we did with the scaling, I can press R to rotate, and I can press Z to force it. Even in this viewport, I can force it to rotate in this direction around the Z axis. And by doing this, I'm still not breaking the way my polygons were. I'm not really introducing any problem here. So I'm okay to do that one here too. So now we've created a plank. Maybe we'll do this one. Should we just do a little bit interesting like this, like it's like split there or something? So this is our new plank. If you do want a little bit of shape to it, let's say we wanted to make this plank warp a little bit, but not too much. So I'm going to click on this face here. If I rotate this one now, it's just doing the tip there, and I want to warp the whole plank a little bit more. And I've got a little thing up here, which is super handy, which is proportional editing. And if you look here, there's like a little circle with a little dot in it. And the shortcut for this one, you want to learn the shortcut as much as you can. It's O on the keyboard. So if I click on that one, then you can see now, if I press R to rotate, not tremendously much different, but there's like this new circle here. And now you can use the mouse wheel to make this one smaller or bigger. And this introduces like a proportional editing technique, so I can rotate this plank and warp it a little bit more proportionally. So this is a really handy way to do it if you want to do like manipulate. And this is where it's important too, that you need geometry everywhere, because it can only do this rotation now proportionally based on where you've got geometry. So we put those loop cuts in there before. So if I want to do it like this, I can put a little warp onto this plank. Maybe I want to scale this one. And scaling, it works the same too. I've got proportional editing, so I can use the mouse wheel to scale it and change the proportions there. So maybe we'll just do a plank like this, and I'm going to move this one too. So everything that I do now is proportional. So I'm going to press O to deselect proportional, and here's our new plank. So normally you'd have to UV unwrap this and texture paint this one, which I do so rarely that I'm not going to even attempt it now. But I'm going to put some details into this plank instead. And here's probably where you're going to, like a lot of 3D modelers now will start cringing when I do this. But I'd say that it's perfectly all right to do this in many circumstances. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the knife tool, press K, and then I'm going to cut like this. And I want to have some details here. So cut, 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 because I want like a part of my wood texture now like this. So I'm going to cut, 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 and here like this. And back to there. And again, sorry if you're falling off your chairs now and saying like maybe you've deleted your YouTube account now because you saw this, because you're not really meant to be doing stuff like this, and you'll probably hear. But the benefit that I get from this is I can zoom in now, and I can change G on the keypad or on my keyboard and move this onto a brighter color, and now suddenly I get a little bit of interesting detail in my wood texture here. So I'm going to do it again. Again, if you're falling off your chair now and you want to delete everything, you know, cancel my YouTube account because of this, I kind of understand you, because and there are good reasons why you sometimes shouldn't be doing, or most of the time you shouldn't be doing this, but I'm also going to show you why it's okay. So I'm going to grab this one and put these a little bit brighter, because the nice thing is now we can actually get a really cool plank looking, and I should probably do the underside too, but I'm just going to do the top side today. We can also do the same and get a little bit of darker. Let's put a notch here. So I'm going to put here, put a little thing like this. So let's make that a little bit more interesting like this. And instead of moving it up here, I'm going to move my mouse over to the left, press G, and move it down to like a darker thing there. And maybe we can even do, I'm going to do I to inset this one now. And usually here's like one thing. See, if I do it too much now, I is insetting all the polygons. Then this is a problem, because it starts to break my geometry. You never, ever, ever want to do this. If I told you that you shouldn't really be doing knife tools, that's I can live with you doing that. But if you get a mesh that looks like this, you're going to run into a lot of problems. I see a lot of people, especially when I've been out to schools and teaching kids how to model, they always get into these situations, and sometimes you notice it way too late, but there's always ways around it. I'm going to press Ctrl Z to go out of there, and the reason why that happened is because when I pressed I to inset, like I run out of space with the insetting mechanic, so it actually starts to offset over on top of each other. So I'm going to cancel that one, select these two instead, and just press I to inset. And now I get away with it a little bit, but I still don't, because it's starting to overlap here. So always be careful and don't let that happen at all. To fix that one, I could I can select these two verts by holding the Shift key and pressing J. Remember we did that before. That'll create a line between here. Now I can select these and press I to inset, and now it allows me to go in a little bit further. And now I can change this one to an even darker color. So that's how we can get like a little notch to go through there. Normally, like I said, you'll probably hear over and over again, if you go to like 3D modeling school or whatever, like they'll probably, like again, cancel, like they'll kick you out for doing these sort of things. The reason why I'd say that this is perfectly okay to do is because we're not going to animate this plank. We're not going to subdivide the plank. Subdividing is when you press, when you add here, for example, if I add and generate and I do a subdivision surface, now it starts to break. This is why you don't necessarily, or like this is why you shouldn't be doing it unless you're just doing low poly stuff. Because if I try to subdivide this one now, you get all of this stuff is broken. If I press Ctrl A to apply this one and tab, you can see it's totally broken. So if you're going to subdivide an object, then you should not have these knife cuts like this. So bad in that case. But for this style, it's okay, because we're also not going to be modifying these meshes to the point where if I were to animate this mesh now, and let's say I wanted to bend it, let's do proportional like we did before. So I'm going to press O to put proportional editing on now. If I go to the side here and I press R to rotate, I scroll it up, you can see if I rotate this one now, you can see that it starts to break here. And that's because the knife cut has actually done some of that damage that we don't really want. But I'm not planning to animate this plank like this at all. So it's not going to be a problem because we don't need to do it. So what can we do instead? Well, the thing is that when a 3D engine renders this anyway, what it does is it triangulates it in the background before it renders it. Everything turns into triangles whether you want to or not. If I desperately want to be able to bend this plank in an animation, let's say you're doing like a Fortnite hit animation where you're hitting planks and you want them to really wobble like this without breaking. There's a way you can do it. So when you're finished with your mesh like this, you can press A to select everything and press Ctrl T to triangulate it. And that creates triangles everywhere. So we're not having these n-gons issues anymore now, where n-gons is where you got more than 4 sides. If I again click on the end sides here and press R to rotate, you can see that I can now rotate this plank and bend it the way it's meant to be doing, because it's all in triangles instead. So the downside is that we're not in that quad mesh topology, so we still have issues. If I try to apply a subdivision modifier, and you can actually do this by pressing Control like 1, then it behaves a lot better now. If I press Ctrl A to apply it and tab in, you can see that we don't really have those problems because we did the triangulation first. But it's still, we don't have a quad mesh topology, so it's still like, it's not ideal for a lot of the stuff that if you're doing like character modeling and stuff like that. But again, for these low poly models, I do this all the time, and I've created games with this technique. I've created the airplanes in Line War, for example. When they crash, they have loads of different colorization differences using this technique, and it works perfectly fine. So if it's used in the proper way, you can do it. Another thing you want to do is probably put some edge wear on this thing. So like, let's say this part of the plank here, if I select this edge, I'm in edge select here, and I press Ctrl B, that bevels this edge alone. So now if I do this one, and now if I press 1 to get the vertex select, I can press here. And here's another trick. If you press G to move something, see, I've got proportional, that's why it's bending my whole plank. So I'm going to press up here to disable proportional. If I press G now, I can move this vert anywhere, but it's usually difficult because usually I just want to slide a vert along a line. But there's a nifty trick you can do. You can actually press G again, and that slides that vert instead across any of the lines that you've got. So I'm going to slide this one down to here, and I'm going to press this one, press G and then G again to slide it. Click on this one, press G and G again to slide this one, and then press G and G again, and we can slide this along the verts there. So now I've created edge wear on this plank, and to emphasize this, I usually select these faces that I've created and I make them a little bit brighter. I'm going to make them 2 steps brighter. Press G on the left here and move it up to there. And now we've created like an edge wear on this plank here. You can even do bevel on a vertex itself. So if I click on this vertex, I'm in 1 now, in vertex select, but you cannot press Control B like you thought you would be able to, like Control B to bevel, but you can still bevel this vert, and that's by, you have to press Control Shift B for vertices, and that'll put a little nice slice onto this one. But be aware now that we're breaking this, the quad topology again now. So if I've done this and I want to create a loop cut here by pressing Control R, you can see that I cannot create this loop cut that I was expecting to be able to go around, and that's because we've got this n-gon here. N-gon is, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 verts instead of a quad now. So again, you'll hear this all the time, that don't do it, don't have n-gons, and usually that's perfectly valid to say, but in this case, I'm okay with having n-gons. I'm gonna press Control G, or press G and then G again to slide it down. I'm gonna select this one and put this one brighter on the left side there, so we put a little edge wear onto that one too. And this is how we can create our plank. I'm going to press K again, and here some people flipping out, so knife tool, let's put to there, and I grab this one. And if I want to pick the same colors I had here, I can press Shift now and select this one. You can see that it's actually highlighting where I've got that other color, and if I click on this one, you can see that I've got the color down there. And I usually do this a lot by keeping multiple selections so I can see what color I've used, because now I can just click and drag on this one, which I know is this color here, and now I can press G to move it, and I can move it to whatever color that I remembered that I put the other ones on. So if I wanted to make it a little bit darker there, we could there too. And let's put another little feature here, so K, and then move it to here, and I'm gonna press 3 and then move this one to a darker. So that's our new plank, the way we've got it here. If I wanted to duplicate this plank and make maybe a variation of this one now, I can press Shift D to duplicate the whole object. Right click, it's always the same as escape, snaps it back. But it's here, you can see in the outliner I've got 2 cubes here now. And I slide this one to here, and you can see that I've got another plank now. If I press tab into edit mode, I can maybe make a variation of this plank now. And usually I do this a little bit before I colorize it, because I'd have to go through a lot of effort to make a plank that's significantly different from this, because it's already carried over. So usually I do this operation before I start to put my texture. So maybe I'll create like 3 or 4 or 5 planks or something like that. A little thing to go from that I can alternate and rotate and stuff. If you wanted to, we can actually get into some of the other operations that I do a lot now, because it's really good to know. Let's say I wanted to get rid of these now, and I want to sort of revert it without having, if I didn't save this one, I can press X here and I can dissolve. Let's do a limited dissolve. Okay, what happened? It just took a few away there, so let's cancel out of that one. Let's press X again, and then we'll do dissolve edges. What happens then? Now it took away all those edges and the colorization we do, but it also took away these edges here. And you could have done this differently. In edge select now, I can hold Shift key and deselect those two if I want to keep those two. I'm going to press X and then dissolve edges, and now we're back to where we were before. So I can actually go back without, it's not all, the cause is not lost or whatever you say. If I didn't do that, let's say I had these selected still, pressed X, and then I did dissolve the edges. So now I could always reintroduce them, because remember we did this before. I press 1 to go into vertex select. I can hold Shift after I've selected a vert, click another one and press J, and that will link those up. That'll create a nice line here in the geometry. And you start to realize when you work with this, you'll get in and out of situations, and the more you learn these tricks of dissolving and like resolving your situations that you end up in. I'm going to press Control Z and go all the way back here. Because the reason why I wanted to go back is because you're probably tempted, like if I wanted to like delete this, why did I do dissolve instead of delete? It's because if I press X, which is actually the same hotkey as delete, but it's more convenient placed all the way over here. So I press X. If I try to delete the edges, you can see that it's actually really breaking my polygons here. Now I can't even speak because I'm like upset that it broke this much. So this is because it's actually deleted. When it deletes the edges, it also deletes some of the faces. Like if I look now, it looks like it's here, but it's not. And the reason why it's because it's actually opened up a gap now, and you've got these little stray edges even here that are here. So I'm going to delete these edges now, to say, because sometimes you actually end up in this situation too. So I'm going to press delete and delete those edges. So if you've broken your geometry like this, there's ways out of this one too. Don't worry about it too much. So if I wanted to introduce a face now, because it can be a little bit tricky sometimes too, because you don't necessarily know that there's a face missing because you see the interior here. And up here normally, like if I press Z, now you can see that it's actually, now it's a little bit more true, the representation of what's happening, because it looks like the whole chunk of the plank is missing here. When I'm in, like I pressed Z and went into solid mode, that's why it looks a little bit different. And I also went to this drop down and just changed it to material instead of texture because it was showing a different texture color. So now the geometry is still sort of here, but it's underneath. If I rotate down here with the middle mouse button, you can see that the plank has still got stuff under here, but when you go on top, it's actually not rendering it. And it's because all the faces of a 3D object has actually got sides. You've got an outside and an inside. And this one, normally when you create something like this, it's actually got like all of these faces here are the outside. That's why we see these. And these are like the insides and we don't see them. And it's because, and if you in solid mode, even if you see it, usually it's because you'll have this back face culling. If I untick this one, you can see that we get a little bit, we can still see them now, but it's tricking us because it's like we see the inside of them. But a game engine wouldn't render these faces. It'll look like, a game engine actually does this by default, backface culling. So it'll look like the plank is missing here. And it's because it's missing some of these polygons here. But I usually model these days in material preview here. So it's a little bit more difficult to see when the interior, sometimes you'll actually end up having a 3D object in a game engine and you're like, what, something looks wrong or something looks missing. And it's because either faces are missing or they're even inverted where you've like got the whole plank is facing the wrong way. There is a way even here in the material preview that you can do this one. In the drop down here, you can do face orientation. Now you can see that it's colorizing these red now. This is actually new in version 4.4 because it colorized the outside blue before and the inside red. But now it's just doing inside red, and I think this is a good change that they made because like this is literally what you want to see. You want to have this one, and probably I'm going to keep modeling with this one on because it's really useful to be able to see straight away that something's broken here or missing. And sometimes you'll have an entire object. If I press A to select everything here, I'm going to press Alt-N and flip these polygons because you can flip the normals. And if I tab out now, you can see this whole plank is red. And that's because all of these faces are actually facing the wrong way. So if I press Z and go into solid view again, you can see that this whole plank now is like, it's still showing the underneath here. It's because that's actually facing up. But press Z, go into material preview, and there's ways that you can fix this too. So if I select everything and you see some issues here, if you want to fix it because the whole mesh is inverted like this, because it'll look totally broken inside of a game engine now. Press A to select everything and hold the Alt key and press N. I don't know what it is on a Mac because I don't use Mac. I'm a human being. I use PCs instead. Windows. Sorry, I've probably offended a lot of people there. You'll get over it though, I think. So Alt N, maybe it's Command N or something, or Option N. So I don't know. So anyway, Alt N. Then you can, usually I do this a lot, and there's no harm in doing this 99.9% of the time, just to recalculate outside. Actually, Blender will calculate what it thinks is facing outside, and it'll do it. Actually, this is what I was going to do. If I flip it again, flip all the polygons, and I go inside this plank now, if I try, bop, you can actually see that all the red is going away. It's because the interior, like this is a big tunnel inside the plank now. If you flew inside of this plank in a game engine, you would actually render it perfectly fine. If you were like a termite or something and walking inside the plank, that'd work. But as soon as the termite comes out of the plank, it will just break and not look properly. So Alt-N, and you can either and I have to be in edit mode and have everything selected I want to flip. So Alt-N, and you can either flip them manually or do recalculate outside if that's what you want to do, or recalculate inside. But usually I do this recalculate outside a lot. So let's go back into this broken plank. So we want to recreate these polygons that we're missing. And you can do this by, in Edge Select now, select the edges where you want a polygon to exist. So I'm going to select a few of these. The reason why I'm getting like a little, it's because I can see that there's a vert here. And that's because I created those n-gons here. So again, if you hate me for that, that's fine. I'll get over it. But I'm going to shift select these, and now when I've got like, oh, there's no line here, but I want to create a face now, I'm going to press F on the keyboard. That actually fills this nicely in now. So it creates a little nice polygon here, and if I wanted to do another one here, I can hold the Shift key, select a bunch of these, like this, press F, and now we actually have a little quirk here, and I'll show you why that's happening in a second. And you can also just select one edge if you want and press F, and it'll try to do its best, and usually it tries to fill in quads all the time. So if I press F again and then F again, it'll actually fill these in. Or you could press Ctrl Z and you can manually select all the edges that you want to do. So here we go. and press F, and that'll fill this one in. So what's happened to this one now? Why we've got like a weird thing here? And that's because if I select this face now in face select and I zoom in, I can see that it's tried to like patch this hole, but it's trying to slide the UVs now. Some of them are on this dark color and some of them are in this bright one. And to fix this one, usually I just make sure that I've got the face selected. When the mouse is over on the left side here on the UVs, I press S to select or to scale it and press 0 and then enter, and then G, I move it into here now. And you can see that it's still not really doing it. And it's because it's actually not selecting, even though I've got the full face selected here, it's not selected all the verts on the left side. And with this is selected here, I can press A on the left side and press S to scale it and 0, and then G to move it and move it up there. And we're back to this. So we've filled this hole in now. That's a bit of a repair tip for you, how you can get away with repairing stuff if you've broken it. I do this a lot, all the time. And so get used to maybe repairing it's pretty good exercise to do that too. Let's say we wanted to make a little plank variation now. So I'm gonna hold the shift key and select a bunch of these. Or actually, you know what? I'm gonna click on these and select the edges that I wanted to delete. So, and this becomes a little bit tedious, so maybe we can introduce another tool here. I'm going to press C now for circle select. And now when I hold the mouse button, the left one, I can just like select a whole bunch of lines. And if I use the middle mouse button, I can deselect things. So maybe something like that I want to do. I want to deselect this one. I want to select this one, deselect. So middle mouse button deselects. And now if I press X, okay, if you try to press X now and nothing happens, it's because I'm still in this circle select mode. But if I press enter first, because I have to get out of that one, now I press X and then I dissolve the edges and we're back to like dissolving those. So I'm going to take these away too. I'm going to select these. Now the heart rate is slowly returning for those people that are flipping out about the N-gon issue here. So your heart rate is coming back to normal now. I can feel it. So dissolve edges, there we go. But we still got the little UV thing here. So I'm going to select these, press A on the left side to select all the verts, S to scale it, and 0, and then move it up to here. So now we're back to where we were before. Okay, I actually put that on too bright of a color, so G, move it down to there. All right, so if I wanted to create a version of the plank, I should probably do stuff like this, like Shift D to duplicate this whole plank now, and then I can press X, remember, and then slide it to here. Tab into edit mode. And now we can create, now let's bring the heart rate up again. I'm gonna press K, knife cut, and here we go. And I'm gonna cut a nice little shape here. And then I'm gonna select these and then G, move them up to a bright color. So K, knife cut, and there. And 3 to get into face select these with shift selected, and G, move them up. And here, like, I'm gonna press, tab in edit mode again, K, knife cut, and now we'll create a little distinctive different thing here, like this. Press 3, select face select, and G to move this one down to there. So now we've got like a different plank here. Maybe I wanted to change, maybe this one shouldn't even be split, so I'm gonna press here. Here's another trick. If you select these two and you wanna grow the selection, think of it as growing, like it's spreading. So if I hold the control key or whatever that's called on Macintosh or Apple or whatever it's called these days, and then press plus on the numpad, if that's even got one of those. So that actually grows the selection. If I press control plus again, it'll grow it. And if I press control minus, it'll shrink it. So that's a pretty nifty way to like gradually increase your selection. Now I'm gonna press X, and then I'm gonna, actually this time I'm gonna delete either vertices or faces, but I'm gonna delete faces. And that actually cuts that part of the plank away. I can press 2. Remember, we've done this. And here's another tip. If I wanted to select all of these now, I can hold Alt and Shift and click on this edge. And that actually ring or loop selects or something. I can't remember the exact terminology, but it tries to select everywhere around that it can, all the way. It tries to follow a path all the way around. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to see. You don't have to press shift, it's because I had that one selected. It's just hold the alt key or option or command or something on Macintosh, Apple or whatever, Mac. And then click on this edge. So that selects. And sometimes on a cube, for example, it won't really work because it needs to have a little bit of a hint on like what's a continuous range around it. But in this case, it worked. And now I can press F to fill this one. And we still have the little UV issue here. So either you could just leave it because it looks fine. Or on the left, I press A to select everything, S to scale it, and 0, and then we can bring it to whatever color we want. So if I want like that. And we've got an end on here, but that's okay. I'm not going to worry about that one too much. So this is a different plank, and this is how we can make our different plank. If I wanted to do this one, let's say I wanted to take away on this one, so tab into edit mode, and now I want to take away this bevel here. So let's see, what are the options we can do? There's multiple ways we can do it, but I'm going to start by just deleting these. So select these with shift selected. I'm going to press delete faces, delete face. We can see that we can see a hole into this mesh now. And we can, there's multiple ways we can get out of this one too. And I really want to show this in the video too, because this is something I do all the time. And that's like, if we want to like glue this gap together now, we don't really want to create another face. We don't want to press F and create a face, because that's where we came from. But I want this vertex and this vertex to be the same vertex. There are multiple ways you can do it. The easiest way you can do it is if I select one of them, shift select the other one, press M to merge them, I can do, for example, at center. And that glues those two. Imagine like a zipper just gluing these two together. And if I did this one too, M and merge it at center, it like merges this one. And this one's just left from before. We could either delete this one or dissolve it or something. So that's one way to do it. I'm going to Control Z out of it because there are other ways to do it. You can also do it so that it actually, if I select this one, shift select this one, and M to merge, you can do at last or at first. So at last, it actually moves it and merges it at the last selected vert. And again, if I did it merge at first, it'll merge it to here. So there are different ways that you can do this one. There's also one called merge by distance, and I'll show you why that's useful too. Because if I have this one, and up here, there's another very useful tool, and it's this little magnet thing here. If I use the drop down and go into, I can select whether the snap target should be, by default it's increment here, but I usually keep it on vertex very often. Now when I press G to move this one, if I hold the control key, here comes a magic thing, I can actually move it onto another vert and it'll snap to that vert, exactly that place in 3D space. I do this a lot and it's very useful. You can even like have it to snap to this vert position, but only on the x-axis. So if I move it on this one, hold the control key, I can snap it to this one, and that actually perfectly aligns that vert, but in the Z direction there on top of it. Very useful. I do this a lot when I manipulate and repair meshes and stuff like that. So, but I'm going to press G now and move it and hold the control key and snap it onto there. And it looks like this is glued now. It looks like we've fixed this little gap issue here, but we haven't. Because if I select this vert and press G to move it, you can see that they're still separate because we've not told them that it should be one vert. It's actually two vertices here now. And there's a way to fix that one too. If I press A to select everything, if I suspect that there are duplicate vertices, because if you're doing stuff and something doesn't make sense, it's like you're trying to do something and it's like it's splitting your mesh altogether, then it's very often, like 9 times out of 10, it's because you've got duplicate vertices everywhere or in some places. So if you press M to merge and now do by distance, and then you can see at the bottom here it says removed one vertex, and it's because it noticed that the distance was within this threshold, so these were basically in the same place. So now if I move this vert with G, you can see that it's not really splitting that edge anymore. So if I do this one again, G, move it, hold the control key, snap it to there, maybe I'll even do this one, G to move it. Now I've got 3 verts in the same place. And usually you can test this by clicking on a vert and pressing G. If it looks like this, then usually it's because you've got duplicate verts there. So to fix it, you can either select just this region, or you press A, I usually do A, and press M to merge it by distance. And now it says it removed 2 vertices, so this one's here now. So it's just that one vert. Very handy to do that one. The reason why you probably often get into that situation, if I scale this one up and scale this one, sometimes what happens is if you do E to extrude and you're like, no, I'm gonna change my mind, so I canceled it and I pressed right click, and then now I press 1 and I start to edit over here, it looks like you did nothing wrong there. It looks like no damage was done, but I extruded this face and I snapped it back to where it was. So it's actually still extruded, and you've got duplicate verts everywhere here now. And I only know that because I see a lot of beginners do this all the time. They try to extrude something, they change their mind, they snap it back or press escape thinking that they cancelled it, but it's there. And then suddenly you've got this one, shift D to, maybe you even shift D to duplicated this face and went, all right, no, I changed my mind, I'll press escape and now I'll do something else. And then suddenly now I've got here, if I press G on this one's actually extruded. So, but it's overlapping in the same place. And this one, if I select this one and press G, that's actually a whole separate face. And the quickest way out of this mess, if this has happened to you, press A to select all the stuff, press M to merge by distance, and it says now it removed 8 vertices. So now this one, if I select it, press G, that extrusion is all gone. If I click on this one, that face is gone too. So we've that's a very handy tool to do. A to select everything, M to merge, and then do by distance. Very useful. All right, so maybe we'll just do something on this one too. I'm gonna do a different edge wear on this one. Oh yeah, here we've got an issue too, because we've got all these little stray verts here that we've collapsed. If you want to just get rid of these, press X and then just dissolve vertex, or yep. And I can shift select those, X, and dissolve those if I don't want them anymore. And then I'm going to put a little bit more color here. So K to knife cut, and then we'll get the heart rate up going again now. So here you go. Knife cut this and colorize it. Those G, let's make that one darker, and K to colorize this one. Or K to knife cut that one. Okay, there, and shift select these, G, move that one to brighter. And maybe this one we want to change. So here I could, this one needs to be a bit brighter. Let's break this plank a little bit here. So there's multiple ways to do it. Control B, we've already learned, you can do that. So here's, I guess there's multiple, like if I wanted this one to go in now, there's many different ways I could do it. I could press Control R, put a loop cut, but I can't because I've actually broken this one. But what I could do is I can press K for knife tool, and by default, if I do this one, if I put a slice here, you can see that I put it on this side but not on the underneath here, and that's by default. The knife tool only operates on one side here. K, if I press that again, and now if you look at the bottom, you got a few more hotkeys. So at the bottom you see C, for example, is cut through. So if I press C, it's highlighting that one. Now when I click, I'm even going to click outside the blank, and I'm going to slide it down to here and click, and then I'm going to press enter. And now you can see that it's actually cut through the whole plank. So now we can, this is how we can do K and then C to cut through, click, and then slide it there and then enter. And now we've actually, instead of, because we couldn't do loop cuts here because I've destroyed this thing. Someone told me to do n-gons here. So now you could. Anyway, now I could move this one in along the x-axis. So that's how we could create a slit there if we wanted to, and make that a little bit more interesting geometry wise. So if I didn't want to do that, I'm going to Control Z, take those knife cuts away. I could do something like this. I could press Control B to bevel this one. And see, it sort of went in, but it didn't. So I could either cut this through a knife, or I can even shift select these now and press delete or X, and then I'm going to delete the faces. You can see that took that part of the plank away. I can select this one, and here, if I press F, it'll fill this one in because it defaults to a quad. And if I press F again, it'll fill this one out too. And now I can now we've got a little bit more interesting, like a broken thing. If I wanted to colorize this one too, I could do, let's just do K, knife tool, and then C to cut through. And I'm just gonna like cut all the way through here. And there we go. And then I'm gonna select these, hold the shift key. Okay, that one didn't cut through, so I'm gonna select this one and press J, because we've learned that one too. And here's grow selection is good. So if I hold this one, shift select and click this one, and now remember Control or whatever it is on Mac or Apple or whatever it is, but Control on a real computer, and then press plus, and then that grows the selection, and then G to move it down, and that actually created like a little edge wear thing there. And if I wanted to do this, remember G we could do, but GG slides it along a vert, GG slides it along there. So that's how we could do something like that. So it's just a way for your low poly objects to be able to colorize them, and then you could build like something like a bridge or something with these. Now you could take a bunch of these and align them and create maybe a bridge or something. So if you were part of the group now where the heart rate is going, so instead of doing it like colorizing it like this with a plank, I'm going to do a little bit more of a normal workflow. So let's just move those out of the way. I'm going to press Shift A and create a new mesh, and I'm going to create a cube. So Shift A is useful because you can create new meshes, and I was in object mode when I did this, because you can actually also do it inside of edit mode, but that creates geometry inside of the object. But I've created a new cube now, And if I press tab into edit mode, I can go in and out of tab edit mode, but I want to put my Infansia Pixpal palette texture on this one again. And I could do it by just on the right here, I go down to the material, I can use the drop down and select my Pixpal material. You can actually also copy it from these that are already here. So if I hold shift, select this one and shift select one of the ones with the materials that I've got, I can press Ctrl L and then I can transfer information like link materials. That actually takes the material from this one and links it over to this one, which is super useful. If I tab into edit mode now, I can, you can see, this is where we started before. I press A to select everything, S to scale it, and 0 down to here, and then move the vert to here. And now maybe we can create something like something that I did recently in the previous video, for example, is like some sort of an aircon unit, like more high-tech thing. So we're going to go through some of the techniques that we use now. I'm going to, like, in face select, I'm going to select this one, move it up to here, press Ctrl R to, because I'm going to do like a double one here, and then right click. Here's another useful one. If I select this one and press I to inset, I mentioned this before, but now you can see that it insets this one. But if I wanted to do, so it actually does individually faces here, you can see at the bottom now that you can do individual. If I press I again, it'll do individual face insets. So if I do this one, you can see that it's actually created 2 of these insets now. Actually, here's another thing I want to show you because this is a good opportunity. If I also did the same on this one, I to inset, so that's created individually. Let's say I wanted to cut through this one now like a hole, because that's pretty often I want to do windows or something like that. I'm going to select this face, hold the shift key and select this face. And now when you right click, you get this context menu up and you can do bridge faces. And that's pretty magic because then it cuts a hole between those faces. I do this a lot too. If I want to do like a sword or something with a hole inside of the center of the sword, or if I want to create a window, or if I do in a car wheel or something like that, I do this a lot. So remember, select 2 faces, right click, and then bridge face. It's a pretty useful one. All right, so I'm going to Control Z out of that one, and we were making some sort of an AC unit. So I'm going to, if I select this and right click, and I'm going to do subdivide, and that actually gets us back into Ngon world. But again, I'd claim that that's perfectly fine in this one, because this actually turned into an Ngon now. But for the low poly stuff that we're making, I'm okay with it. So I'm going to select these now, and I'm going to press I to inset again, but now we don't want individuals, so I'm going to do I again. And then here we go. And now I actually want to squash it. I want this one to be a little bit more square than like this. So I'm going to press A to select everything, S to scale it, and then Y axis. So that's fine. It's not perfectly like uniform, but that's okay. And now go back into face select. And here's another tip that I use a lot. And in the edit tab on the right here now, I usually go, I have this enabled, and you probably won't see this one, loop tools, but you can enable it if you go to edit, preferences, and go look for add-ons and then search for loop tools, because it comes automatically with Windows, I was going to say, with Blender. So I've enabled loop tools here, because now when I've got these selected and I did that subdivision, I can click on circle, and that actually shapes that geometry into a circle. And for my low poly stuff, I do this quite a lot, especially if I want to do like a sci-fi, it's like an aircon unit or something. Then I press I to inset again, maybe just like a little bit like this, and move it in. That creates a little nice bevel here on the edge. And then I can do either E to extrude it into there, S to scale it a bit, I to inset, and then E to extrude it out, and E to extrude it, and S to scale it. And then usually I do this, I click on these faces here, and then I E to extrude these in. So this can create something like a little sci-fi type of, I don't know, AC unit, I keep calling it. But, and usually I also fake a little bit, like if you have a geometry model like that's like this, since we're not doing the texture painting, I usually colorize it to compensate for that. So what I do is I'll select these interfaces, and on the left I press G and move it either to something dark like this, so it looks like a hole even though there isn't one, but it's like the illusion of a hole. And likewise, sometimes you could do like on these, actually I'm going to hold the Alt key and click on this line here, because that ring selects everything, and then I'm manually going to select a few of these here, hold the Shift key, and then on G I'm going to move it down to a little bit darker but not fully dark, and that also makes it a little bit more interesting straight away. Another thing you can do with the Infansia Pixpal palette texture is if you wanted to make this really sci-fi looking, instead of having it dark in here, sometimes I make it light with emission. So since I've already set up this one, and you can download this one, then you can if I select these faces that we turned into a dark color, I'm gonna press G and move them into this section, which is actually gonna make them glow. And it doesn't look like it's glowing too much now. It's because it's not really got so much bloom enabled. But I'm gonna go into compositing and see if I can find Z on the lower here, material preview, and then go to the front side. There we go. We want to make this one bloom a bit, so this drop down always, that's fine. But where is my compositing stuff? It's like here somewhere, or maybe not. Delete. All right, so I'll have to right click, add, input, and we'll have to do scene, render layers. Zoom in on this one, Shift A, output, composite, and then drag them here. And then now Shift A, and then I'm gonna do, okay, I'll search for it, glare, and place that in the middle, and then change streaks to bloom. And then now I can change the strength and the size down to something like that instead. So I do stuff like this a lot with my colorization and this glow effect. So if I do Control R, loop cut there, E to extrude this one, and then Control R to loop cut there. We've got an N-gon here, but that's okay. Press J, we've learned that we can link those up together. And now, for example, I to inset, S to scale on the Y-axis, E to extrude, and maybe we want G on the left here and move this onto a blue thing here. And you can start to quickly like create stuff that looks pretty cool, like sci-fi looking with these different colors. Usually I have stuff glowing either in this color or like even a magenta, like a cyberpunky thing. So if I had, like say, E to extrude this one, S to scale it, E to extrude, and then we created some, maybe we had some panel here on the side. So another thing that I've done a lot is I use Shift D a lot to duplicate faces and press right click to scale, snap it back, press S to scale it down, and then press S to scale it on the x-axis, and then E to extrude. This one I can create a little side geometry here without actually manipulating this geometry. And then maybe I'll do I to inset, S to scale, Z on the z-axis, and then E to extrude it. And then instead of a blue color here, we can put it on like a glowy pink color. So that's also a little bit cyberpunky there. All right, so this is actually what I do most of the time. I'm in edit mode of meshes, and I just do E to extrude, S to scale, and I do E to extrude, S to scale. I press Control R to do loop cuts, and I press Control R to do loop cuts, and I use the mouse wheel to increase and decrease my loop cuts. I usually select faces and press I to inset, and then remember E to extrude. And then what we did before, if I select faces and I do Alt E to extrude, I can do individual faces, and this is actually individual too. And I can also do, if I wanted to extrude these, I can select these two and do extrude, Alt E, extrude along face normals. That actually extrudes it in two directions at the same time. And you see that it's actually getting a little weird tilt in the center. I don't know why I'm tilting my head, but there's got like a little tilt there. Sometimes you don't want that one. So if I hold the Alt key, it can actually keep it uniformly scaled even when I do it extrude along face normals. So this is looking hideous now. It's because it's not got no real purpose with what I'm doing. But if I selected all of these, let's say I selected like a whole ring around, I don't know, there, pressed Alt E, extrude along face normals, you can uniformly extrude it, and if I hold the Alt I can force. So it's trying its best now. It's got a little bit strange shape there, but I do this all the time when I create my my stuff. Another one that's useful that I didn't know for years, but this is super useful. If I wanted to extrude this one in now, if I try to extrude it, or I press E to extrude it, you can see that it's creating these little inverted face here. It's broken. This is usually not what you want to do. Sometimes you just want to extrude it in, but there's actually a useful one, Alt E, and then do extrude manifold. And that actually extrudes it in like this, and it keeps that nicely done. So if you ever wondered what extrude manifold does, it does exactly that. So if I select this one, Alt E, extrude manifold, it's actually really useful to do it that way. So I don't know for how long I actually didn't use that one for some reason. I also do this to create paneling sometimes. So if I wanted to create a little sci-fi panel here, I can press I to inset it, and S usually scales it, but S scales it just like along the face normal, well, not the normal, along the face like plane. But if you do Alt S, you can actually scale it, scaling it out from, so this is usually how I do my panels. If I press Control R to loop cut that one, select this face, maybe we'll put Control R, put another loop cut. I'm messing this one up a little bit now just to show like what you can do with it. And then this one, I'm gonna slide down to here. So if I wanted to put a Sci-fi panel here, I select this one and this one, press I to inset it, Alt S to extrude long face normals, and that creates a little nice little panel bevel here. Maybe I want to create one here, I to inset, Alt S to scale it, and then here, I to inset, Alt S to scale it. And this is how we can create these like sci-fi panel looking things. This is like this technique now that I've showed. Most of it, this is what I do nearly all the time. If I load this one up, I've created, this one is actually created all using this technique, the exo mesh here. If I don't save this one, this is when you spend more time doing it. Just if let's hide the armature here, select both of these objects and press tab into edit mode. All of these are just done in the same way. For example, up here, if I do select these two, E to extrude, S to scale, E to extrude, S to scale. Let's say I wanted to put an antenna here, or two antennas. Shift D to duplicate them because I'm in mirror mode, scale it down, and then E to extrude, right click to snap it back, move it up, S to scale it down. And let's say I wanted to put, I don't know, some red lights on this. Control R to loop cut it, Control R to loop cut it, hold the Alt key, select there, and then I'm just going to change this from the metallic gray down here to like the emissive red. And again, it's not blooming because I need to do this stupid thing in Blender always, and I have to go back into compositing. Why did they do this to us? Input, I need to do scene, render layers, Shift A, output, composite, and I need to do Shift A, search, glare node. This is because I should make a plugin that just does this. And then plug this one into there, plug this one into there, and then change to bloom. This used to be one tick box. I'm not going to stop complaining about this until it's back to one tick box. 3D viewport, Z, material preview, and then why is it not blooming now? Because I've got render layers into image, glare, bloom. Oh yeah, because I need to do this drop down and select compositor always, and it's still not blooming. Size, bloom, glare, bloom, glare, out, bloom, oh, use nodes. Okay, so if you spotted that before me, well done. I forgot about it. Like I said, it used to be one tick box right here. Bloom, schmack, Bob's your uncle. Not anymore. So, oh yeah, now we got those red lights there. So everything that I do, if you want to get, like, everything else is just practice to get it into the shape that I needed it to be. To get this character and this exo mesh, it's a whole bunch of these. I'm still gonna just say it because it sounds like too good to be true, but it's E to extrude, S to scale, E to extrude, S to scale, E to extrude, S to scale. You get these spikes, for example, G to move it. Like you can get like stuff like this. And then if I wanted to color, let's say I wanted to put a vent here, it's again E to extrude, or I to inset, I did, and then E to extrude, and then change the color here into like something dark. And if I wanted to put some like mesh here, Shift D to duplicate this one, G to move it, S to scale it, G to move it down, E to extrude it, L select the linked, that's a good one, I haven't said that today. I do that a lot too. If I hover my mouse over this and press L, now it's not going to do anything because I don't have face select, but if I press 3, go into face select and press L, it selects all the geometry that's connected to each other. And since I duplicated a face and extruded it, this one, if I press G, it's just like a separate geometry within my exoskeleton here. S to scale it, G to move it down. I'm just going to put it there. Shift D to duplicate it. Maybe I'll G to move it and Shift D to duplicate it just to prove like a little point here. So we've got L select linked and G. You want to make sure that it's not like showing through or anything like that. So that's one way to get like a little vent thing going there. Let's say we wanted to see the fingers here. So I'm going to select the tips of the fingers, press Ctrl plus, I to inset, that actually works here too. Alt S to scale along the face normals. And then I could press like put a skin color there. So that's how I can do the fingers, but that looks super weird because it's like not really a human hand. So I can't really have those colors there. If I wanted to put something here on the chest, I could bevel this, but I have to be worried again if I wanted to introduce the end guns or not. But I could do something like this. I can press I to inset and then be careful here because I'm getting some warped polygons here, but I can usually get myself out of it by GG sliding those. Rotate the viewport too, pick verts, and then move them into like place 2. You can do that. Select those, E to extrude, and then maybe we'll put that onto a dark one. Here's a good one too. So you're wondering why maybe stuff is happening on both sides here, and it's because I've got the mirror modifier on. So if you're really new to Blender and you don't know what that is, I haven't even spoke about modifiers today, so we'll do that in a separate video. But in this little modifiers tab, it looks like a wrench. I've got this mirror modifier on. If I hide this one by doing this one, you can see that for this exoskeleton, it's actually, I'm only modeling 1/2 and it's doing the same on the other side of it. And the way you can do this one, either you can manually apply, like add a modifier and do generate and do mirror there. So that's one way to do it. But I usually recommend that you go to edit and preferences and then enable another one here called auto mirror. So under add-ons, do auto mirror and enable that one. Because now when you've got it selected, an object like this, and if this menu is missing that I was telling you about an hour ago, press N to expand that one, or just click on this little arrow. And when you've got this one now, under edit, you've got auto mirror. So I've actually already got it set up for this one, but if you click on it, it adds that one and mirrors it. So that's what I've done. That's why you're actually seeing stuff on both sides at the same time. So when you do inset, you probably, I don't know if you noticed it, but let's say I wanted to do this inset like we did before. So I press I to inset. You can see sometimes I want to inset it like this is like one big uniforms, but it creates this little extra face here that we don't necessarily want. So if I press I to inset, and at the bottom, remember you got a little extra hotkeys there. If I press B there for boundary, you can actually get away with getting rid of that one. And again, I'm going to fix this one here because this is breaking my verts a little bit. So pressing GG makes them slide nicely, and then maybe G, trying to get them there. Select these. Now if I do it, E to extrude, then I get this one. If I wanted to bloom, I'm going to put it on the left side, G to move it up to this bloomy section too. We can get like another light color there. So if I wanted to create a hose here, let's do that as a final example here, because that's pretty much the only thing that's different on this one. So obviously rigging this whole thing, I've got videos on doing that too, and I can walk you through that in a different video. It's about time that I do another one for Blender 4.4. But let's just do one more hose here so you can see how that works. Usually how I do it, I just pick something. Let's say I wanted a hose to go from here and bring it down to here. And I grab this face here in edit. Shift D will duplicate it, and right click to snap it back. And I'm going to press S to scale it down. And now I'm going to right click and press subdivide. That actually subdivides it out. If I press G and move it out there, you can see that it's got enough geometry now. And in edit here, I have loop tools enabled. So I'm going to press circle. That turns that into a circle. Press S to scale it down. And now S to scale it down even more. And then G, I'm going to move it inside of this one now and press E to extrude it. And now I can keep extruding this one. So I'm going to rotate my viewport and then E to extrude it and press R to rotate and G to move. E to extrude, R to rotate and G to move. So now I have to be, when I do this, like I have to rotate my viewport so I can see what I'm doing, because now I want to like twist it and go into there. So I'm going to do R to rotate and G to move it a little bit more. E to extrude, R to rotate, G to move. And there is a way you can actually do this a little bit like faster, I suppose. And when you've got your viewport like this, hold the control key or whatever it is called on Mac or a Macintosh, and then right click with your mouse, and that'll actually extrude it. Rotate the viewport, hold the control key and right click. And it tries to do it, but I usually tend to not do it this way because you get this skewed look on them. So press Ctrl Z, and usually what I'll do is I'll rotate it, G to move it, and E to extrude it, R to rotate, G to move, E to extrude, R to rotate, and then C, I'm going to bring it down. Okay, so now I actually ended up way too high here, so I'm going to press Ctrl plus on the numpad, press R to rotate it, and G to move it to correct it. Ctrl minus on the numpad, R to rotate, and G to move. Ctrl minus and Ctrl minus, we're back out to the tip here, and then maybe look here, E to extrude, and then I'm just going to keep it like that. So the difference with this hose and this hose now is that these are flat shaded and these are smooth shaded. So I think we'll end the video by showing how that works. If I press L to select the link, remember when I'm in this same object here, this geometry is linked because they're connected. If I press G to move it, I can separate this. So now when all of this is selected, I'm going to press a right click and do shade smooth. And that actually takes, even though don't have a tremendous amount of geometry, if I tab out of edit mode, it looks a lot smoother. It's because the 3D rendering takes the normals and calculates what the average is. So as it goes around a bend, it'll look a lot nicer and smoother this way for hoses and things like that. And then I'm going to press L to select the link and then scroll it down here, press G to move it and into something darker. And now we've suddenly created a black hose here to another one. So that's how I create my hoses. Sometimes you'll have some issues now, like this arm is cutting through that hose and it's not really animating it properly. So that's for another video too, but that's how you can do it. All right, so with the practice now, remember a few of the key things. 1, 2, 3 selects between vertex, edge, and face select. E to extrude, S to scale, I to inset, G to move, and R to rotate. Those operations will get you extremely far. So keep practicing and just do low poly objects and gradually build up. Just think of anything. Create a crate. Create, I don't know, a gold bar, a plank of wood, a bridge, a can of Coke, a table, a chair, a couch. Maybe build your way gradually up from something super simple, a matchbox, I don't know, a fence, something that could be used in games, a stone, that's probably the simplest thing you can imagine. And then gradually build up to more and more complicated items, like even a car or a spaceship or something like that. And at the end of it, you might create like cool robots or something, I don't know, or anything that you could imagine that would be used in a game. So practice, and have a lot of fun, first of all. That's the most important thing, and I'm sure you'll be great. And just persist and you'll learn Blender in the end. So happy low poly modeling, and I'll see you in a video shortly again. Bye for now.